The NFL draft is less than a month away, so it's time to get ready, start talking rookies. And today I'm starting with my top 10 rookie running backs for 2026. And let's start right away with number one. No question here, it's Jeremiah Love of Notre Dame. There's really not a lot to say here. This guy is truly a special generational talent. He can do it all. He's got speed, he's the ability to break tackles, catch passes, be in for pass protection. This guy has the potential to be the next Bijan Robinson, Christian McCaffrey, Jahmyr Gibbs. I'm talking top 5, no doubt, stud, RB1 for fantasy. He can do it all. He's head and shoulders, miles better than every other running back in this class. He's undoubtedly going to be the number one rookie selected in every single format. Dynasty rookie drafts, dynasty startup drafts, redraft leagues, doesn't matter. He is the top rookie, no doubt about it. Now, like I said, he's miles better than everybody else, but somebody has to be number 2. I'm going to go with Jonah Coleman out of Washington. In my opinion, he has the best chance of being a 3-down back. Now, he doesn't give you the pass-catching ability as a Jeremiah Love does. Honestly, there's not a lot of running backs in this class that do, but he does give you that ability to run through contacts, break tackles, go forward, and that's always a big plus for NFL teams and for your fantasy team. But what I really like about Jonah Coleman, why I really think he could be on the field for all 3 downs, why he is my number 2 running back, is because he's really good in pass protection, and he prides himself on being good in pass protection. And that's usually the thing that holds rookies back from playing more snaps. We saw this with TreVeyon Henderson last year. He was absolutely getting wrecked in pass pro, and that limited his snaps. We don't have to worry about that as much with Coleman. Now, of course, he doesn't have the upside of a lot like of a TreVeyon Henderson or many running backs, because he's not a guy that's going to rip off home runs. He's not going to catch a ton of passes, but think more like a solid RB2 who could, give you a decent amount of yards, score some touchdowns, still be a very productive fantasy player if he lands in the right spot, just probably not RB1 type upside. Now, at number 3, I'm going to go with Emmett Johnson of Nebraska. He's also a guy here, like outside of Jeremiah Love, he's the only running back I look at who could actually be out there to give you, production as a ball carrier, but also as a pass catcher. He only started 1 year of college, but it was a very good year. He had 1,451 rushing yards and 88.1 rushing grade. Now, the downside here, and it's the downside for a lot of these running backs, is he's slow. He only ran a 4.56 40 at just 202 pounds. That is not the kind of speed you want. This guy is not going to hit home runs like a Jahmyr Gibbs or a Bijan Robinson or anything like that. But I think a good comparison here is Bucky Irving. Bucky Irving was also about 200 pounds, ran a 4.55 40. But when you watched him on film, you saw a guy who was a good pass catcher, and it was also a guy who was good at breaking tackles. And that's what I'm going to bet on. Not going to be, sexy and glamorous, because you're not going to see the highlights of him ripping off a 50-yard touchdown. But as we've seen with Bucky Irving, if he gets to in a situation where he can play all 3 downs, he can be productive for fantasy. Now, as we've also seen with Bucky Irving, from his rookie year to his second year, the upside is a bit limited when you don't have those huge home run ability. But still, if you get a high-end RB2 here, that would be great. And again, when we look at the rest of the running backs, at least he gives me the potential to give me yards on the ground and through the air. And I'm going to value that more than other things in this very weak running back class. Now, at number 4, I'm going to go with Kaytron Allen out of Penn State. This is another guy who's not very fast. You're not going to see athletic highlights and be like, wow, this guy jumps off the page. But what you are going to see is a guy who can break tackles, fall forward, consistently get yards. And while that doesn't excite us necessarily for fantasy, it is good because it means NFL teams, that's what they value. And him being on the field, getting carries, can then lead to fantasy points. I think a perfect example here is Cam Skattebo last year. I was way higher on consensus on Cam Skattebo because, again, I saw what he could do, and I said, this is what NFL teams want a running back to do. Now, unlike Cam Skattebo, Allen is not going to be a big, heavily used in the passing game here. He's more just an early down guy. I would probably compare him more to a David Montgomery type. And look, we've seen many years David Montgomery has been productive for fantasy. We just know there's not massive upside with a guy like this, with a guy like David Montgomery. But again, in this running back class, a guy who the NFL teams will value his skill set probably more than fantasy players will. That leads to fantasy points. You got to be getting the ball you got to get on the field. And if Allen lands in the right spot, that can happen for him. Next up for me is going to be Jamari Taylor out of Virginia Tech. This is an undersized running back who doesn't play like an undersized running back. This guy will take on contact, run through contact, lower the shoulder. And again, NFL teams are going to bet on these guys. This is what the NFL doesn't, of course, they want a guy to rip off a long run and score a touchdown, but a guy who can consistently pick up 3, 4, 5 yards of carry, always valuable to NFL teams. He does show some speed when you watch him on tape, some bursts. He's not like a slow plotter like some of these other running backs I've talked about. And he does give us a little bit in the passing game, though I will say he did struggle with drops in college. That could be an issue, obviously, at the next level. I will say the one area where he does really struggle, and this also could hurt him at the next level, especially when it comes to being on the field, getting touches, is he has a tendency to kind of dance behind the line of scrimmage. His cuts aren't always fluid, and that can lead to loss of yards. And, that could be a negative for NFL teams. But if he can get in a system where it's just, see the hole, find the hole, go, run through contact, he could be productive. Again, not a guy that's going to jump off the page with any crazy athleticism or anything like that, but he gets the job done. And in this weak running back class, I think that's what NFL teams are going to value. All right, next I have Jeremiah Love's teammate, Jadarian Price from Notre Dame. A lot of people have Price ranked much higher, but I have some serious concerns with Price. I could see this guy being a massive bust. Look, he was faster than a lot of running backs in this class, but he still only ran a 4.49 40 at 203 pounds. By no means was he fast. But what I really worry about here is most of his production came against light boxes. He struggled against stacked boxes last year. He's going to need a situation where he gets a lot of light boxes. He kind of compares similarly to James Cook, another guy who struggled against stacked boxes in college, but luckily for him, he went to the Buffalo Bills where he faces a ton of light boxes because teams have to worry about Josh Allen and the passing game. So if Price can end up in a situation like that, he could have success in the NFL. But if he ends up in a situation where teams aren't scared of the passing game and they're playing a lot of stacked fronts against him, he is going to struggle mightily. He's not going to be a guy that's, heavily involved in the passing game either. I have my real concerns about Price. He's the kind of profile that oftentimes busts, not only for fantasy, but in real life. So that's why I am lower on him than most consensus rankings. Next up, I'm going to have Roman Hemby out of Indiana. This is another guy who just gets through contact, consistently falling forward. And while that's not like going to get the juices flowing for your fantasy league, that is what gets rookies on the field, gets the ball in their hands. He also does have reliable hands, so he can give you that pass catching, not like extreme pass catching, but some pass catching. That always helps for fantasy. The downside here is this isn't a guy who's going to rip off a ton of explosive runs, but he will grind out yards. And look, yeah, grinding out yards, again, does not excite you for fantasy, right? But at the end of the day, if he's grinding out 50, 60 rushing yards, 20, 30 receiving yards, and he falls in the end zone, that's a great day for fantasy. You'll take it. There's just not a ton of upside in this running back class. I wish there was, but there isn't. We got to wait for 2027 for that. All right, right behind him, I do have a guy that has potential upside, but also a ton of risk. That is Nicholas Singleton out of Penn State. We didn't get to see him run a 40 at the combine, at the pro day, because he was dealing with an injury. But if you watch this guy, you don't need to see him run the 40. Blazing fast guy, home run hitter, and he's also got size to go with that speed. The downside is, doesn't seem like he's very big when you watch him play. This is not a guy who breaks a lot of tackles. In fact, according to Pro Football Focus, he had a 0.17 missed tackles forced rate. That is the bottom 15th percentile of all running backs since 2017. And this is not good because the only successful running backs we have with this metric are guys like Tariq Cohen, Philip Lindsay, Darrell Williams, and most recently Isaiah Pacheco. But if he can land with a team where, he can have that type of role, like we've seen these guys, especially if they can be in that pass catching role, be out there on 3rd and long when he's facing light boxes and he doesn't have to worry about running through contact, we at least see that there is some potential, some upside. He's got that home run ability. But man, there's also risk that this guy just never does anything. And even if he does have one nice year, like all these guys had one nice year, but we never saw any of these guys really put it together for a second year. That's the worry here. Even if he has one nice year, can he do it again? His prospect profile says probably not. All right, rounding out the list, we got a couple of guys. These are just hope and praise, right? These are just hope and praise. They land in the absolute perfect spot. Let's start with Damon Claiborne out of Wake Forest. Ran a 4.3740, which is fast. Till you realize he's 188 pounds. Still fast. I mean, don't get me wrong. And look, this guy is very twitchy. You watch him. He's got speed. He can get off the edge, turn the corner. He can blow past linebackers. You get this guy to the second level, there's a chance he's taking it to the house. He looks very similar to me like Devon Achane. You get him in that wide zone rushing scheme like Achane had in that Mike McDaniel offense, he can absolutely do some damage. The downside here is, unlike Achane, he's not as good of a pass catcher as Achane, so he's not going to give us that pass catching, that massive pass catching upside that Achane gave us. And he does need, in my opinion, he does need that wide zone scheme. If he's not in that scheme, he's not going to be able to run between the tackles. Get him wide, get him on the outside, get him around the corner. He'll be good to go. Anything else? Probably not. So again, very risky here. Landing spot's going to matter for all these guys except for Love, but landing spot really going to matter here. I remember when Achane was coming out as a prospect, I was like, man, I do not like his profile. He needs a perfect spot, and he got it with Miami. That's what we need with Claiborne. And that's also what we need even more with Desmond Reed out of Pitt. Going to round out my top 10 here. Another undersized, twitchy running back, but man, 174 pounds, that is a major concern here. I mean, we're talking like pass catching, Tariq Cohen is a great example. Darren Sproles from back in the day, if you played fantasy for that long, is a great example. Sure, there's potential here for these guys if they can get on a team where they can catch 40, 50, 60 passes, but that's pretty much it here. He's never going to be a between the tackles runner. You've got to get this guy out in space. Honestly, I really don't think he's going to be fantasy relevant. I think his role is probably going to be more on special teams, like punt, kick return type of guy, but if he lands in the right spot where he can be that pass catching back, there is at least a path. Again, this is not a great running back class, but somebody's got to make the top 10. There is my top 10. Don't worry, I'll be doing this for wide receivers as well. A much stronger class, much more to talk about with the wide receivers, also tight ends and QBs. So if you need to catch up on your rookies before the NFL draft, make sure you stay tuned to Fantasy Endgame here. And if you missed any of the valuable content we've put out for you this offseason, don't worry. You can find it all in our playlist right here.